Two negotiators sit across from each other in a metropolitan high-rise. One offers an exceptionally generous initial concession, relying on the universal human norm of reciprocity to secure a long-term, mutually beneficial partnership. Inside the second negotiator, a physiological anomaly is occurring. The act of deception triggers absolutely no rapid heartbeat, no ethical hesitation, and no cortisol spike. They accept the concession with a warm, practiced smile, yet they are already calculating the precise moment to defect and hollow out the partner's assets. This is a highly refined, subclinical reality of the human personality known as the Machiavellian blueprint. It is a psychological architecture optimized entirely for strategic manipulation and the relentless pursuit of personal gain. Unlike a primary psychopath characterized by reckless, thrill-seeking behavior, or a narcissist demanding immediate social validation, the high Machiavellian operates with deliberate patience. Their primary adaptive advantage is highly sensitive radar for long-term consequences and systemic control. To protect collective welfare and optimize human networks, we must dissect the mechanics of this psychological profile. By analyzing the structural degradation it inflicts on organizations, we can deploy precise, evidence-based frameworks to neutralize its predatory drag on systemic utility. The development of this strategic blueprint begins with a distinct biological marker. Physiological studies reveal that individuals with high Machiavellian traits exhibit a blunted Cortisol Awakening Response, or CAR, which is highly heritable. This hormonal baseline acts as an immunity shield, isolating the individual from the somatic markers of stress and guilt that typically deter unethical behavior, effectively decoupling their cognitive capacity to understand human emotions from their affective capacity to actually feel them. This genetic architecture is then catalyzed by early environmental conditioning. Childhood relationships with emotionally distant, unexpressive, or highly punitive caregivers teach the child that depending on others is a naive vulnerability. They learn to engineer interpersonal safety actively through control. This is the interpersonal circumplex, mapping personality traits by social motivation. The vertical axis measures agency, the drive to individuate, while the horizontal measures communion, supporting group interests. The Machiavellian plots exactly here, extremely high in individual agency, diagonally opposite to the communion-focused drive. This specific intersection of biological guilt immunity and high agency conditioning creates an individual who perceives the social world as a hostile arena, permanently driven to extract resources at the direct expense of the collective. To observe the behavioral execution of this trait in real time, researchers analyze decision-making models within the strict variables of economic game theory. Under standard economic paradigms, normal human players routinely deviate from pure mathematical utility maximization. They sacrifice their own immediate payouts to enforce fairness, punish social defectors, and preserve collective trust. This decision tree is the trust game. Player 1 transfers an endowment, which expands. The Machiavellian mimics cooperation as Player 1, initiating a transfer to grow the pool. But when roles reverse, their strategy shifts to pure extraction, returning a microscopic fraction. They completely disregard the human norm of positive reciprocity. By abandoning any pretense of fairness, the operator captures the maximum immediate payoff available in the system. This execution highlights a critical limitation, explained by evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins, conspiracy of the doves. Acting as a defector is only mathematically viable as long as the victim remains unaware. Once the collective population recognizes a persistent defector, they align to cut off future cooperative gains. In a purely transactional vacuum, the Machiavellian's mimicry of trust is never genuine empathy. It is an investment vehicle designed strictly to maximize the ultimate extraction of resources. The true danger materializes when this cold calculation transitions from sterile economic games into the high-stakes environment of intimate human relationships. This scale models the risk regulation system. In healthy individuals, it balances connectedness against self-protection. For the Machiavellian, the system is heavily tipped toward threat detection. Viewing partners through chronic distrust, their cognitive filter rejects genuine intimacy as an unacceptable vulnerability. This flowchart outlines the three-phase progression of gaslighting. Because the operator perceives a partner's autonomy as a threat, they deploy psychological violence to neutralize it. During the initial phase, the operator establishes a baseline of emotional tension. They generate erratic mood shifts and unpredictable aggression to destabilize the target's sense of security. The manipulation transitions into the direct attack phase, overtly denying or contradicting the partner's perceptions of verifiable events. In the final phase, the true gaslighting consolidates. The operator systematically manipulates physical environments and conversational history to induce confusion and cognitive emptiness. This systematic distortion of reality strips away the victim's external reference points. They become entirely dependent on the controller, easily mined for intrinsic emotional resources. When you scale this exact timeline of interpersonal manipulation upward, deploying it over a massive workforce, you generate systemic corporate meltdown. Organizational data analyzing over 500,000 participants links Machiavellian leadership to severe toxicity. Their presence systematically triggers abusive supervision, intense employee burnout, and counterproductive work behaviors as employees react to perceived injustice with corporate sabotage. Yet these operators frequently survive in a corporate gray zone. By possessing high tenure, they reshape organizational norms to match their cynical worldview, masking their toxic downward impact from the executives above them. Elizabeth Holmes served as a prime example of this calculation within the technology sector. She executed a deliberate, long-term strategy of image control to maintain the legitimacy of a fraudulent blood testing technology for over a decade. When internal scientists raised critical concerns about fatal technical failures, Holmes did not react with emotional panic. She deployed extreme organizational silos, strict legal non-disclosure agreements, and targeted intimidation to suppress whistleblowers. This pathology crosses geographic borders. In the United Kingdom, Mirror Group CEO Robert Maxwell executed a fraudulent secret raid on his employees' corporate pension funds, stripping thousands of retirees of their secure investments to prop up his failing international business empire. At scale, excessive organizational silos and weaponized NDAs function exactly like intimate gaslighting. They isolate nodes of truth, keeping the entire collective blind to sustain a massive systemic extraction of assets. Neutralizing the predatory drag of Machiavellianism requires a pivot in defensive strategy. Because these operators are highly sensitive to cost-benefit ratios, traditional moral appeals or empathy-based interventions categorically fail. The system itself must be engineered to make manipulation mathematically unprofitable. Organizations must abolish structural ambiguity by transitioning to highly structured, transparent, and data-driven performance metrics. To blindside the operator's ability to manage upward while abusing downward, institutions must implement 360-degree performance reviews with absolute, legally guaranteed anonymity for subordinates. For employees or partners who cannot immediately exit a compromised environment, behavioral analysts rely on the Marbit Tactical Coping Framework. This table outlines specific principles designed to minimize vulnerability. The first individual defense is to formalize all communication. By documenting every meeting, instruction, and agreement via unalterable written records, you instantly block conversational gaslighting and attempts to rewrite reality. The second defense is maintaining absolute emotional detachment. Limit all conversations strictly to work-based, factual matters. By withholding personal details, you deny the operator any vulnerable leverage they can weaponize against you. By forcing all interactions into the light of objective reality and denying emotional leverage, you starve the Machiavellian of the ambiguity and isolation they require to survive. To further analyze the high-stakes dynamics of human psychology and master real-world tactical defense, subscribe to the Global Behavioral Forum. Join us to decode human behavior and protect collective trust against the silent drag of strategic calculation.